I'll wait for just a moment. All right. It is City of Rhinelander Common Council meeting is January 24th, 2020. The meeting notice, the agenda has been posted, the media has been notified. Please call roll.
Christopher Frederickson.
Here.
Thomas Barnett.
I am here.
Andrew Larson.
Here.
Carrie Michalowski.
Here.
Thomas Kelly.
Here.
Gerald Anderson. Here. David Holt.
Here.
Eileen Daniel.
Here.
Ryan Rossing.
Here. We have quorum to do business. Please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comment. Nobody signed up for it, but if anybody wanted to raise their hands at one last minute. Alrighty, seeing none. Do we have any that was delivered to the alderpersons? All right, moving on. Mayor's comments. Our packets since at least 2 years from now have been out on Wednesdays before we get too far. Last meeting, we had a 27-minute meeting. And I was given kudos for having such a fast and efficient meeting. Yet at the same time, some of it kind of hurts me because I think things should be discussed in front of the people. Yet at the same time, it shows some progression in the fact that people are prepared. We had an older person that was questioned as to why he was able to make motions so fast and be able to move on. He said, because I read my packet. So I'd like to congratulate the council for actually doing their due diligence and making sure they have the information before. For the people, I'd like to inform them that we do have a packet out. It's out by Wednesday, and we review it for the whole week before. Quite often write down pages. We don't even have to do that anymore because people know where it is in the packet. That's it for mayor comments. Meeting minutes. Approval of the January 10th, 2022 council meeting minutes. I'll accept the motion.
Holt, I will make a motion to approve the January 10th, 2022 council meeting minutes.
Barnett, second.
We have a motion and a second. Gerald? Oh, nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes are read in. Public hearing, CDBG, PLN activities, housing needs assessment program activities, progress and goals. I think we have
Again, we've got Jeff from MSA who's assisted us throughout some of the CDBG compliance aspects of the housing needs assessment. If you recall, the CDBG plan program supported with a 2/3 match of the city's contribution to accomplish that housing needs assessment through a grant that we applied for. And associated with CDBG, there are a number of compliance activities, and one of them is to hold a public hearing to update the public and offer the public an opportunity to weigh in as well on those activities if they so choose. So Jeff, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. I think you might be muted. Tara, are we having any connection issues tonight?
Well, he is definitely muted.
Okay. You should
Can you hear
be able
me
to...
now?
Yep, we can.
All right, great. Sorry about that. Once again, I'm Jeff Thielen. I'm with MSA Professional Services. I've been administering the grant that is paid for the housing needs assessment. As Zach mentioned, our public hearing is required. This is technically the second public hearing, the first one that we held when we prepared the application. So we are taking care of the last one here, which is part of the project closeout. So just a quick rundown. CDBG, Department of Administration, awarded the city 22,633 with a match of 11,316 for a total project cost of $33,949 to prepare a housing needs assessment. Basically, all CDBG funded activities have been complete, and we're in the process of closing out the grant now. That's basically it on the update of the actual program. We just need to check with the general public on any questions or comments they have on the housing needs assessment or the CDBG program in general.
Being the case, we will ask you 3 times. Is there any public that would like to chime in on the housing needs assessment? A second time, is there anyone in the gallery or elsewhere that could chime in at this point? The housing needs assessment that we had done. Anybody want to talk? And third and final time before closing, is there anybody in the gallery that would like to talk on our housing needs? In that case, we close this public hearing. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Unfinished business from previous council meetings. Discuss and approve the request for qualifications for web design services. This is Zach.
I shared the draft copy. I'm not certain if paper copies made it into everybody's mailboxes since yesterday when I put the finishing touches on it. Essentially, this is the request for qualifications as we talked about the process before about this initiative. One, we've got a funding source with the 2021-2022 borrowing, but at this point in time, we'd like to invite various qualified firms submit us their qualifications with the associated activities, and then we've got a schedule within there, and I had it pulled up here. I was just going to review the schedule with everyone. In effect, we're seeking and soliciting statements of qualifications from, again, qualified individuals. The second portion of that draft item was what we're hoping to accomplish with this project, some technical standards, and then the schedule was to publish the request for qualifications RFQ this week, effectively tomorrow, provided your concurrence on the draft. Set a deadline of February 28th for review with a week to select and notify vendors for interviewing. And then from there, if we want interviews or presentations to the council, we can exercise that option. And then we would be issuing a request for proposals. So that way, that step would entail inviting those firms that have self-identified as interested in the project to submit and respond to a request for proposals, which would cover things like city's budget for the project, what expectations we have for their team, time frame for completion. Though some of these things are identified in this request for qualifications, we would affirm those things in that RFP call out at that point. Our selection process is pretty straightforward. Again, we're trying to pre-screen some of these vendors so we can get a sense of their qualifications and capabilities. By having this process versus just a straight request for proposals, again, enables us to have a bit more of an intimate discussion with those that might be interested in submitting a proposal down the line. And then a number of the other expectations associated with ADA compliance, CJIS compliance, which are some of the expectations that the city current website is probably deficient in a number of areas within. The team at the firm hopes to apply toward the project, and then again, finally, the technical specs, things that we hope to, or that we expect them to integrate the website with. We've launched a number of tools, Laserfiche, the MuniCode online zoning updates, and the chamber and the city are currently supporting with other community partners a community rebranding exercise. So we want a lot of these pieces to come together and not stand on their own. So we'll have, as part of that review team, probably some community members like in the area of a community calendar and such that we'd want their input and review on the project as well. So that really, and then social media integration, make sure that it integrates well with social media, as well as our Hodeg TV streaming service that our meetings have been broadcast on thus far. And then finally, a much more user-friendly and easy tool for agenda and minutes. Right now, we're currently posting things through a calendar, which is not the easiest to find, especially if you're on a mobile device. So we want to bring those things far more into the current generation of technology. And I think this will be a great project ultimately when we're completed. But there's obviously a lot of effort going thus far to develop this, but then looking forward, that needs to be accomplished yet, excuse me.
So this may seem somewhat confusing because we know we want a new website and everything else, like it's just to be done. By adding an extra step, by asking for qualifications, you can see the different parts that are out there too. Because once again, if you don't ask and you just have a proposal, they'll meet the proposal, but we might be missing something. So that's the reason for this. Tom?
Yeah, I read through this, the whole packet, and I do like the fact that we are focusing on the uptick in the security for the website as well. But I wanted to point one thing out that really struck me, and that was in the overview, the second part, letter C. The redesigned website must provide dynamic content presentation that keeps users engaged and informed. The city seeks to expand channels of communication to streamline messaging through online tools, including forums and civic engagement. Content sought by users must be easily found and navigation remain user-friendly. I think that is an excellent part of this overview, and that something that we're requiring these companies to really focus on, because user ease of use by our constituents is really important, because you can put all sorts of fancy things on a website, but if no one knows how to get somewhere, it's useless. So I'm really glad to see that in there.
Gerald?
I like the part that Tom mentioned, but I would call attention to the paragraph before that. City would like to redesign site to emphasize marketing the city and its services first, serving as a resource second. And I'm not sure exactly how I would restate that, but I don't think we want one without the other. And I've seen a lot of city and other websites that spend so much time on the marketing aspect that you can't find what you really want. In other words, they're talking about the forest, but you can't find the trees. And so I don't know about that first and second idea there.
First of all, for the request for qualifications, this isn't really the proposal, so we have time to adjust that. When it comes to those things, we write the RFP that comes out from the qualifications. But yeah, I share your concerns that we don't know that this is what it is. Once again, this is just the call for their qualifications to make some of this stuff happen.
And I would just maybe restate the serving as a resource second, because we don't have a full-time webmaster or web administrator. The items that we put on the website really have to have some sort of time sensitivity to them, because we do find ourselves, especially now with the website that's been in existence for a number of years, it's a lot of legacy, outdated information that, because the content management system doesn't allow us to really find set expirations or look at the upload date, we have to really do it manually by visiting every single site, every single page, within the site individually. So I just want to make sure that, yeah, I absolutely hear what you're saying, and we'll take that under advisement as the RFP is generated ultimately. But at this point in time, it's not meant to be all things to all people and become real bloated. I think we want to keep a very simple site that meets the expectations. Again, very difficult thing to achieve sometimes, but just not having every available resource on the city's website, that there might be other places to get that information.
I like what you said about the time sensitivity. Right now we have some things on that first page that are supposedly current but aren't really. Maybe they need to come off of there, or maybe they need to find their way somewhere else in the website.
Absolutely. Yeah. Identifying the need was not it. Now it's finding the right one. So thank you. Discuss and approve the 2022 project engineering services not to exceed $24,900.
Do we need to do anything on that first one?
I don't believe so. He can write RFQs on his own. You.
I was just gonna make a motion, but if you don't need it, we don't need to do it.
RFQs are well within the purview of our administrator. So anyway. Discuss and approve 2022 project engineering services not to exceed $24,900.
I was just going to briefly introduce this item. This is for the scope of work that's already been presented to the council as it relates to chip seal, mill and overlay, and then any other construction administration, development of bid documents. Some of this work has already been ongoing. However, this is the technical detail that we want council approval and affirmation on, since it involves spending.
Barnett, I make a motion to approve the 2022 project engineering services not to exceed $24,900.
Larson, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? They've done a wonderful job in putting this together, and I appreciate it. Please call roll.
David Holt,
Aye.
Ryan Rossing,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Andrew
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss and approve the Timber Drive reconstruction scope.
Mark's going to make his way up here, but I'll briefly introduce this item. You know, there's been a number of components to the analysis on this project as time has progressed, both from a public outreach and public engagement aspect. It's been important to us given the scope involves some potential changes both to the footprint of the roadway as well as the question of whether or not a path was going to be made a part of the scope. And then finally, question on what's the state of the underground utilities. And for some reason or another, partially maybe through the planning exercises, but the utilities were never, as far as I understood, a part of the real critical analysis up until more recently when we wanted to televise the sewer, the underground sanitary sewer in this footprint. And you know, hindsight being 2020, originally the city was looking at doing this as purely a street reconstruction, street surfacing project. You know, especially for a project of this scale and nature, it should be our practice going forward to figure out if we're going to consider utilities as part of that scope. And that's partially why we want to bring this before you tonight, because we've been operating under some assumptions budgetarily as to what the scope of the project would be. Street, possibly the addition of a path, and then any other storm sewer, curb and gutter aspects associated with the project. So the budget you approved last year is, and I've given out another updated attachment. Did you get this one, Ryan, too? Option 2 is what budget was basically approved. The contingency amount has pushed that number a little bit over the budget, maybe about $100,000 over, so just over $2 million with contingency. As part of our analysis on this, and I'll have Mark talk in some greater detail, so that's what the number you've approved. The next line of options 3 and 4 address some of the sewer and utility concerns in that area. You know, we want to be cognizant if we're going to be in there spending $2 million on a roadway that we're doing some other analysis, you know, for future growth planning, bearing in mind not only the development that's already been planned there, but accounting for some future growth as well. So I'll have Mark go into that. The funding source for the project is in the Pratt budget presently with a $450,000 state grant. But again, now we're going to talk more about utilities as well as an update on the path analysis and planning that was associated with the project.
Yeah, so like Zach said, this has been a long-going, ever-evolving project. This started in 2019 with a grant submittal for full-depth pulverizing and replacement of curb and gutter on from Stevens Street to Timber Heights Drive. The city was awarded a $450,000 grant for that, which is still outstanding and will be applied to the construction of this project. Since that time, the project the project limits have went out to the bypass. Last year, we started talking about bike path, and we submitted for a stewardship grant and a recreational trails grant for the bike path for an off-road path on the south side. I know the Bike Ped Committee had their preference was the north side. The south side is what we had always talked about in design for a couple of reasons. There's plenty of right-of-way on the south side. There's limited right-of-way on the north side. And if you were to put in the bike path on the north side, you're eliminating sidewalk and you would have no pedestrian facilities on the south side. So that's where that conversation has always been, the bike path on the south side. That progressed. Staff last year brought up some concerns about the sanitary sewer. There are at times, since the Driscoll apartment's been picked up, they now run through Timber Heights. There are at times when when that lift station kicks on, that those pipes are running full. So we did some sewer sizing in there, and that the existing sewer pipe is undersized, and particularly with some potential developments coming in this area, it would be wise to replace that sanitary sewer. You hope to get 25, 30 years on Timber Drive. So that pipe is undersized now. It's going to be undersized 25 years from now. So it'd be a great opportunity to take advantage of that. So we discussed that with staff. Zach had mentioned the televising of the sanitary sewer. Tom organized the televising of that. We televised the entire stretch. What we found is all the sanitary sewer is in poor condition. There's some offset joints. There's a bunch of sags. Things that need to be addressed. West of Coolidge, however, that sanitary sewer is in poor condition, but it's appropriately sized. There's no need to upsize that pipe, but there is need to fix some of the issues with the pipe. So how that can be addressed is spot repair and sewer lining. So what we would do is dig up the spots that are offset joints, the sags, repair those, and then line that pipe. That lining gives it some structural integrity, and you'll get additional life out of that. East of Coolidge is where it's undersized. Same issues, sags, offset joints. There'd have to be a lot of spot repair. There's one section of televising where they couldn't get from either direction about 280 feet of pipe. So that pipe's in poor condition. So the proposal and what you see in front of you is lining everything west of Coolidge, replacing everything east of Coolidge up to Timber Heights. So when we brought this for public comment in November, we had a pretty decent showing for that. The comments that we got from most people participating in that were maintenance of the trail, how it was going to be maintained, snow removal, and disruptions of the properties. On the south side, there's plenty right of way, but we have to do some earthwork on that side, potentially retaining walls, and disruption of driveways. And there's understandably concern from residents about that. So in this conversation, as this has evolved, looking at the sanitary sewer, the water main is aged, but not necessarily in need of replacement. The bike path came up again. One thing about the bike path, because you did not receive funding for that bike path, the idea of combining the path with the road, if you were to get the funding, you have the funding for the road, you have the funding for the path, ease of construction, potentially lesser costs, and doing them both at the same time. Because the city was not awarded any funding for the path, with potential funding out there, it's an option now. Just do the road and apply for funding at a future date and put a path in. In that conversation, Zach brought up potentially moving that path to the north side. There's some obstacles with that, which I discussed. Lack of right-of-way, there'd be some easements that are necessary, and you would be losing one pedestrian facility. So you'd end up with just a replacement of that sidewalk on the north side with a multi-use path. But it would come at a lesser cost as well. There's less earthwork needed on that north side, less retaining walls, there's less utility work. Putting it on the south side, we would have to do a lot more storm sewer work and move some hydrants. If we put it on the north side, we can avoid a lot of that. So moving the path to the north side in the future would save about $100,000. So another consideration that the council should take. But that is, in a nutshell, the progression of the project, where we're at. As of right now, we're kind of looking at option 3 and 4, as Zach stated. We would certainly recommend, obviously, the street. We would also recommend the replacement of the sanitary sewer east of Coolidge and lining west of Coolidge. At the very least, doing the spot repair west of Coolidge for those problem areas, and that could always be lined at a later date.
Where's the easement issues on the north side of the road? Where specifically?
Just east of Woodland, I believe.
There's two
Is that correct?
parcels. One is a clinic, and the other being, I know there's a lot of clinics on that corridor, but the one on the north side and the other one is next to the next door apartment complex. The right of way comes almost to the back of curb. There's sidewalk currently in the private property that should otherwise get also addressed with the project separately or with the path, I guess, so regardless of the path. So there's at least two parcels, and there's another gap parcel that we'll have to just work through.
Correct.
Yeah.
Real quick too, I know the Timber Heights crew, when we had some zoning or had some other issues there, were really cognitive of the safety issues of their pedestrians and their children or whatever. And there is no sidewalk on that side of the road. So they'd have to cross timber just to even get to a sidewalk. With this reconstruction, not necessarily being just a refinishing of the road, was sidewalk, curb, and gutter considered as part of that?
Well, all the curb and gutter is going to be replaced. At this point, there's no discussion of if that bike path were to be moved to the north side. There has been no discussion of adding sidewalk on the south side. Adding sidewalk on the south side would come at a considerable cost. It's about 7,000 feet of sidewalk, so you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for sidewalk in there.
So planning for the future, I mean, we have the Farm and Fleet coming in over there, and we've got some concerns from constituents already. I want this to be, it's going to come with a cost, but I want it to be well planned out and well thought out. So whatever we need to do to accomplish that for safety purposes and also bang for our buck while we have the road opened up. So what would be your comment to that, Mark?
Well, bang for your buck, I would suggest holding off on the path and applying for grants for that path. The north side does make sense. Schools are all on the north side. I think it's easy access for the schools, not having to cross timber. It makes sense to go on the north side to me. I would like to see pedestrian facilities on both sides of the road, but if you're looking for bang for your buck and getting the bike path in, putting it on the north side would be probably your best option.
Tom?
So if we decide to put in a sidewalk at a later date, would it be set up to accommodate that?
We certainly could, and that had been a discussion just with the bike path. If you choose not to do the bike path, maybe we do the earthwork for the bike path. The sidewalk would be easier. The sidewalk's 5 feet wide. The bike path is 8 feet wide. You could certainly set it up for that. I don't know what kind of cost savings you would get setting it up for the sidewalk, but it would certainly be a consideration.
I would think that making sure that we have sidewalks, especially on the Timber Heights side, would be very prudent because we're looking at safety issues, especially if there's an uptick. I mean, there's obviously going to be an uptick in traffic going on that corner once Farm and Fleet is in. So anything that we could do to accommodate the safety of any people that live around there, I think is worth it. So that's just my opinion.
Carrie?
I'm just wondering as to the plans of the path on the south side, is it going to be, is the path designed to be on the road itself, just off before the curb or after the curb?
It would be offset from the curb. So it'd be like a normal sidewalk in the city where you'd have a green terrace area in between the curb. Yes, on the north side of Stevens. Yeah.
So could that be used as a ped and bike path? So it wouldn't necessarily be sidewalk per se, but
That's the idea with the bike path. So it's a multi-use path.
Okay.
Is what it is. So an 8-foot wide path would be used for bikes and pedestrians.
all right.
In addition, the street will have striped bike lanes, right, as per the grant agreement with the DOT?
That's correct. If no bike path goes in, no off-road bike path goes in at this time, what we would do is stripe bike lanes, much like the south side of Stevens Street, south of Dwight. That's what Timber Drive would look like. And one of the concerns that we receive from residents is just the speed of vehicles on Timber Drive.
That's what I was just gonna say, is I think for safety purposes, I think we almost need to have something on the south side as well.
Well, the striping in those bike lanes will tend to slow traffic down. You know, we've had this discussion before. When I first moved here, I was a little confused whether that was a 2-lane road or a 4-lane road. And, you know, there will be people passing you, and people tend to drive a lot faster. At 41 feet face-to-face, and you have a 6-foot bike lane in there, you have a 12-foot travel lane. When you have a 12-foot travel lane, that tends to slow people down. When you have a 20-foot wide travel lane, people tend to go a lot faster. So just even the striping of Timber Drive would slow traffic down.
Gerald, did you have your hand up too, or? Yeah.
Yeah, I had 2 questions about funding. Is there some additional funding that, from other sources that would be available for the utilities part of this? And on the bike path funding, apparently we didn't get a grant. Are there other sources for the same purpose? Or do we have to wait another year, or how does that work?
Good questions. On the sewer, the utility side, the reserves with the utilities would likely pick that up unless we choose to finance it externally and cover the debt service through the utility. So the sewer side is a much easier and clearer answer. As it relates to the bike path, while it's currently in the Pratt, as you can tell, as the path as a proportion of the street costs, it's a substantial cost item, and that's partially why we wanted to have the follow-up discussion here. Our preference would be a grant would pay for it, or in part, and I think the stewardship grant is 50-50. There's others out there potentially. However, all of those programs are incredibly subscribed or oversubscribed. And I would say our chances of getting a grant, while they might improve by applying a second year, I really don't have a high degree of confidence that that be the case. And while, as Mark said, we can sort of prep for a future installation of a path, it's not ideal because you'll have construction equipment back in there, residents and motorists will be contending with construction again, possibly a second year. So, you know, I think if we're going to do the path and want to do it a part of the project, it makes sense to do so at this juncture. However, again, when it's a third of the 2/3 project cost for just the path and the benefit, you know, the council really needs to weigh that decision. And, you know, so our recommendation, if the council wishes to have that addition, we can all state that confidently there's not a tremendous amount of additional pedestrian accommodations there because there's already sidewalk. It's just the bicyclists will be, you know, the default then is for them to be in the lanes on the street, though, you know, some say, oh, you can ride your bike on the sidewalk. It's just not policy normally.
Gerald, your second question?
Well, that was 2 already.
Okay.
But
In
I
that
did
case-
I did want to say I'm certainly in favor of doing the bike path now.
Okay. Ryan?
I'm in favor of the bike path as well. So my question, Mark, you're talking about the striping for the bikes on the roadway. So if we put in the bike path on whether it's the north or the south side of the road, is there a need to stripe? I mean, can the road be narrowed and not stripe on that side if we already have spots for bikes to go with the bike path?
Yeah, you would not need to stripe the road. You wouldn't want to go less than 41 face-to-face on that, though. It is a collector route, so you get a lot of traffic on that road, so you don't want to go any wider, and that's per your ordinance, or any narrower. So you would not have to stripe that with bike lanes if you have a bike path. However, one of the stipulations of the LREP grant, that $450,000, was that bike lanes would be striped. So I've run that past DOT, and I'm waiting for a response as to whether we can exchange that. Get rid of the bike lane striping, add the path, if there be any consequences to the city for doing that. So we're waiting for a response from DOT on whether you could eliminate the striping. If they say no, the striping has to be there, well, you put in the path and the striping.
Yeah. Carrie?
I'm just wondering, since this is pedestrian and bike, if maybe some of the ARPA funds would be possible to use towards that?
Yeah, so as it relates to the non-motorized transport aspect of the Pratt, at the beginning of the 21 budgetary year, $120,000 was accumulated for the bike ped aspect. So while we're trying to hold true to that number, but yes, to answer your question, it's just that the Pratt would be consumed, consciously by more for bike ped activities than what was previously discussed there. But yeah, ARPA funds, it would be, provided there's a clear direction, but at this point in time, it appears to be.
David?
Thanks. I think there's a value in striping the road, as well as even if you have the bike path. One, it's a dual-use path, which means that if you're encouraging at least some bicyclists, maybe the ones that travel faster, to use the road, you're reducing the amount of bike traffic that's going to interfere with pedestrian traffic. I also do really like the value of traffic control and having a bike path striped on the street, given how wide it is, and reducing the speed on Timber Drive that way. I think that tends to be effective. Everything that I've heard when I've listened to people talk about that, using striping and at least even conceptually narrowing the thoroughfare reduces speed, even better than speed limits, frankly. So I think there's value in having those. Thanks.
I'll accept a motion if anybody wants to make one.
I got a quick question before any motions are made. One is for Jeremy, real quick, I guess. Just as far, people were talking about the maintenance or the upkeep of the bike path itself. I know part of that section, Jeremy, the city takes the machine out there and does snow removal. Is that an extra added time? And
no, it shouldn't be, because it'll be the same phase or the blueprint as like the sidewalks that they already do. So,
okay.
And it'll actually be easier because it'll be a smoother surface.
Right, that was my question with the cement and the cracking and the heaving and stuff. The blacktop, I would guess, would be easier to maybe maintain.
Yep, for sure.
And then Tom too, Tom Roser, I had a question, if you don't mind, Tom. The water stuff on the west side, I mean, I think it's prudent to take care of our stuff when we have the roadway open. Would you agree with that? Do you think that's the right way to go on?
Yeah, we had the option of lining it all, but in my opinion, especially west of Coolidge, if we're undersized, it's pointless to just line a pipe. You're going to lose a little capacity with lining too. But yeah, this is definitely the time.
Thanks, Tom.
Tom?
So, what are we looking at? Option 1, 2, or 3? Like what are we going to be, or 4?
Yeah, it's either 3 or 4.
All right.
If you're in favor of the whole sewer replacement and sewer lining aspects.
Well, I mean, it's only a matter of time before those fail if they're in your repair now, and then you're going to be tearing up the road all over again. So it'd just be smart to do it now.
Gerald?
I move that we approve the scope of this Timber Drive Street project, options 1, 2, 4, and I guess the water main stuff is separate also.
It's just option 4.
Is that part of option 4?
Correct.
Okay, options 1, 2, and 4.
No, just
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mikulowski, second to approving option number 4.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Since we're just moving forward with the scope of this can be aye or nay, so we're going to go with that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you.
And just in terms of next steps with the project, we're going to continue to press into the final designs, advise the neighborhood as the decision, because some of this was preliminary when it was previously presented to the public. So we'll affirm that and then bring updates as bid documents get prepared. Awarding the contract will ultimately have to be done by the council, so this won't be the last you'll see this in the fairly near future.
Discuss and approve the bid award to Custom Truck One Source for the purchase of a crane truck not to exceed, what?
One more.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I had a note here. This is on hold due to work product in discussion with the church. Sorry. I knew that. Nobody else did. All right, moving on. Introduction, new business. Discuss and approve the bid award of the Custom Truck One Source for the purchase of a crane truck not to exceed $156,504. Jim is on vacation, but you have it in your packet.
Yeah, and Tom may also be able to speak to it since we've had collective discussions about this. But as of now, this is really primarily for the wastewater services, but there are other departments that might call on this on occasion. We competitively solicited bids after we put the specs together. We received 2 proposals. This was the low apparent qualified bidder, and as you'll see, we did exercise the option. I just need to confirm with staff that aspect is going to meet their specs. I think it was related to a compressor on there, if I'm not mistaken, on page 16, bottom right corner. It talks about an optional air compressor. So we're just going to verify that that's what we want. But as of now, we're asking you for not to exceed, whether it's included in this or bought separately. It'll have to still be incorporated into the purchase. The current truck is quite aged. It's had a lot of reliability issues. The funding source for this, while it's not explicit in the utilities budget, we do have reserve funds in the case of, we were just talking in the sewer issue for the sewer construction. We would actually have the reserves to pay for this item as well from a funding source standpoint.
I have a question for Tom real quick. Why in the world does underground water and wastewater need a crane truck?
They have to lift those big pumps out of the ground.
Okay.
Just little, I guess, it's a pricey vehicle, but a little history on, what they get out of it. The last vehicle they bought was about 10 years ago. It had over 100,000 miles on it, and that's the truck they're replacing. They bought it used with 100,000 miles on it. And I would imagine that was for a cost savings, but, if taken care of, I'm sure this is probably a 15-year truck, so.
Thank you.
Larson, I'll make a motion to award the bid to Custom Truck One Source for purchase of a crane truck not to exceed $156,504.
Barnett, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call roll.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye. Ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss and approve Resolution 2022-4, Statement of Understanding regarding the receipt of gift from Dr. Lee Swank.
Attorney Sorensen, the mayor, and I had been working with Dr. Lee Swank to incorporate his aspirations and as well as those that are passionate about that property in protecting its future uses and to ensure that there is exactly what it states, a statement of understanding, so that way the document can kind of live and breathe as the time and preferences change of the community as it relates to the future development of the property. So this is our best attempt to incorporate that, and so I'm not sure if anybody has any specific questions related to the agreement. Steve can address those. Aside from the statement of understanding, we've been actively working with passionate user groups within the community on the development of that grant application that's due next Monday. And so I can tell you, this paralleling that grant application process has been kind of exciting, both to affirm people's understandings about what the future of that property could be, as well as to get potential other grants. Last week we applied for a $1,000 AARP grant. Within 24 hours we were awarded that grant, so it's kind of exciting to see the community support, but also the external support for the future development. So just a small anecdote as it relates to that property.
Alt, I'll make a motion to approve a resolution 2022-4 statement of understanding regarding the receipt of gift from Dr. Lee Swank.
Mikulowski, second.
There's a motion and a second, and for future discussion, one, I'd like to thank Dr. Swink again for the donation of this land. Also for his vision on that property, and then also giving us or entrusting us the stewardship of taking that property forward for recreational use for our community. I think it's just an amazing gift. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss the status of the Little League contracts.
Some background, the Little League contracts technically expire on the 31st of December last year. Obviously, they're not currently using the ball field, so this is the time where we just work through discussion. They've also had some leadership changes on their board. So we had a positive discussion about what they hoped that the city might consider. Jeremy was representing Parks and their interests there. So at this point in time, we're sending the documents as discussed back to their group for execution or some form of agreement, and then we'll bring the final versions here. Not a whole lot of changes in terms of the spirit of the discussions as it relates to the use contracts. However, I was made aware that they're continuing to press forward into potentially a field renovation project of the two Little League fields that was previously discussed last fall, I think is the last time we talked about it as a group. And so that item will likely come before the council as well, accepting of a gift, financial gift. It's I think 130,000 maybe as much as for those field improvements, and it's previously been expressed that the city wouldn't financially be contributing since we don't really have a funding source for the field improvements, but it would be a gift entirely funded by community donors. So you'll see more on that, but so that was the two-part update on the Little League contracts and the field renovation project.
No questions? Closed session, if necessary, to convene into closed session pursuant of Wisconsin State Section 19.851 C and E, consider the employment, promotion, compensation, and performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility in deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investment of public funds, the conducting other specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. 1, discuss the surroundings pending of the active litigation involving the city. B, discuss the administrator's contract to set 2022 compensation.
Rossing will make a motion to go into closed session for the above stated reasons.
Larson, second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call roll.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Abstain.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
All right, we will convene into closed session. You good up there? All right. We'll return to open session. On item A, discussing the strategy surrounding pending active litigation involving the city, there is nothing to report. Discussing the administrator's contract set for 2022 compensation. Carrie.
I would like to make a motion to establish the administrator's 2022 pay rate as per the approved COLA afforded non-union employees in the 2022 budget and associated non-union pay plan to make the retirement contribution as stated in the employment agreement.
Larson, second.
We have a motion and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Any other future agenda items you'd like to add to this list?
I got a question.
Whoa,
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see all the other
Yeah.
names.
Tom?
I'd like an update on where we're at with the downtown cameras.
Wow. Andrew?
Can we get the body cameras back on the?
Yep. And then Ryan.
I think we were going to try and schedule a work session. I'm just wondering where that is.
Yep, the work session was discussed with the fire chief on proposed items, and I believe it's still in session, but a few weeks away, or next week. You want next week? All right.
Wait,
well-
I want some time to plan around it if we're going to have a work session that we're supposed to all attend.
Okay, I'll send out a poll. Yeah. All righty. With that, we're at the end of our agenda.